The unaccompanied children from Syria issue is now an election issue. This is fantastic. Tim Farron has made it an election issue. Now, of course, we've got to remember Tim Farron's form on this, because in 2014, when he was president of the Liberal Democrat Party, Tim Farron said that the Liberal Democrats must answer serious questions over who knew what about allegations of sexual abuse against the former MP Cyril Smith. Of course, since then, we've had complete silence from the Liberal Democrat Party and complete silence from Tim Farron as he's been leader. But he has now decided that Britain should be bringing 50,000 unaccompanied children from Syria to the UK. He's made this statement today as part of his electioneering. And so it's now an election issue. This gives people that might think that this is Tim Farron and the Liberal Democrats have got some questions to answer here, gives them a perfect opportunity to ask those questions. Here's what he said. "I don't want us, Britain, to be the kind of country who turns our backs on those in desperate need. This is about Britain doing its fair share." Now, let's just remember that it is over a year ago since I published a challenge to Tim Farron on this issue. And to date, he has made no statement about what he is going to do about the Syrian children, unaccompanied children, coming to this children and disappearing out the other side of the care system. He has acknowledged in emails that we have that these children are quite possibly being trafficked and used for sexual exploitation. So let's just remember that not so long ago, this report came out heading back to harm. To quote from the report, it said, "Trafficked and unaccompanied asylum-seeking children are going missing from UK care at an alarmingly high rate." And let's not forget that in 2012, the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Runaway and Missing Children and Adults and the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Looked After Children and Care Leavers produced this report following this inquiry into missing children. It was co-chaired by Anne Coffey MP. The first paragraph of this report says it all, really. It says there's a scandal going on in England involving children missing from care, and until recent cases of child sexual exploitation in Rochdale and other places put the spotlight on this issue, it was going on pretty much unnoticed. The report says that 68,000 children in care in the UK. It says that local authorities with responsibility for children are required to report on whether they have run away for more than 24 hours to the Department of Education once a year. The data for 2011 showed at that time that 930 individual children went missing. Using this measure of going missing for over 24 hours, the report says police figures suggest 17,000 incidents and 5,000 individual children going missing from care every year. That's 17,000 incidents and 5,000 individual children going missing from care every year. This is British children from the British care system. This is before unaccompanied children that are a lot less easily tracked even started coming to this country. So the situation is in fact much worse today. Now the question then is, how many of these children return? How many of them end up being trafficked? The report says there are also major problems with the quality of data collected on trafficked children. The numbers reported by CEOP, approximately 300 between 2007 and 2010, is widely thought to be the very tip of the iceberg, and the lack of robust and comprehensive data was also identified by the inquiry as a key obstacle to keeping children safe. Now, we have done a lot of work over the last 2-3 years on the issue of the data that's being kept on children that are going missing from care, and the situation has not improved since 2012. There still is not good data on this, and we pointed out last year that the Independent and other newspapers had reported within a 6-month period at least 300 unaccompanied children going missing out of the care system. And to date, Tim Farron does not want to deal with this issue. As I've said, there are emails have gone backwards and forwards between us and Mr. Farron, and others have been sending emails to him. He refuses to engage. In this particular example, he said that he disagrees with the contention that the issues that have been raised are more important than his local constituency issues. For example, he said he thinks that the 2,500 local families affected by flooding would disagree that their plight isn't important. Nobody's suggesting for 1 second that the plight of people suffering from flooding is not important. The issue is, Mr. Farron, will you engage on this issue? And to date, you absolutely refuse to do so. So this was my paraphrasing of his attitude, that if he does something about it, his parliamentary colleagues of all parties would have nothing to play with. Now, Alex, that might seem like a pretty harsh statement, but I cannot get to grips with the fact that somebody is calling for children who are in a desperate situation already to come to this country, where they're quite likely to find themselves in an equally desperate situation, if not worse. He's not willing to guarantee the safety of the children that he's demanding to bring into this country. What do we do with politicians like this?
We replace them with men who allow themselves to be ruled by their understanding and intellect, and who actually take orders from the electorate. As I was saying at Winchester at the British Constitution Group talk, MPs take our orders. They are public servants. The problem with the social justice warrior thinking, which has particularly infected the left of centre social democrat, liberal democrat mentality in the West, is the idea of virtue signalling. You've put the Tim Farron quotation up there. I don't want the kind of country where, Mr. Farron, you don't go into politics to establish your will. You go there to do what you're appointed by the electorate to do. And the people of Britain have not expressed a clear desire to import lots of Syrian children, particularly not unaccompanied ones, and particularly where the state has already failed. And anyone who's engaged and energized on the issue knows that. And we're even getting people of similar political bent to Tim Farron, independent and Guardian type journalists, pointing this out. Do we have a right? Are we sensible to take on more children when those of the similar kind who've already been taken in have gone missing at such a rate? And the other side of, I think, defending your conclusion there, Mike, about Mr. Farron's colleagues having nothing to play with, is this, that Tim Farron is perhaps somewhat naive, like most people who've not come up close with pederasty and the market in it, into what it means for children to be abused. We have an opinion, we have an idea. As with rape, we have the idea of people being snatched off the street. Yes, it happens, but it's not the only or most common form of rape. So with child abuse, I'm afraid, there are cases of children being taken and kept in a dungeon until they die, sadly. But much more common is children being borrowed, used, and returned. This is what the whole Pizzagate, Pedogate issue, with many videos full of photos, is coming out about on YouTube now, is that you see facilities where children, and it's now more out in the open, but it's been going on a long time, where the elite take children to dingy rooms with nasty mattresses and use them, and then put them back. And our interview with John Wedger made this point quite clearly.
Well, in fact, Alex, Alex, that's exactly right, isn't it? Because perhaps where the all-party parliamentary group report on this issue falls down is, of course, they are particularly focusing on children that aren't returning. But in fact, if children have been out for 24 hours from care, what have they been doing in that period? And I think you've just given a hint.
That's it. And we have had testimonies at UK Column and BCG from those who were victimised, particularly those within the easy-ish drive of London, like the Nottingham cluster, which was a particularly corrupt one going right back to the 80s. They were taken out in a minibus for the weekend. Those in the London outer boroughs, which was John Wedger's specialism in tracking down, although he got too good at it and was sacked for it, that was even more convenient for the elite, because they could be taken out of their borough of Croydon or Haringey or whatever on a Thursday night, abused overnight, or if necessary on a 2-day bender, and then put back on the Sunday morning. And the staff whom John Wedger went and interviewed about this said, oh yes, well, the charities have told us we don't report on this. Or the police liaison people, all common purpose, well, many of them common purpose, have said, don't bother reporting them if they're just going out. Just you have to assume that they're high on drugs. And, you know, that the connections were not being made. Or, again, with Mr. Farron, the will is not there to go beyond your personal gut feelings and, you know, not to do a politics of feeling, but actually to analyse this and to realise what's going on is a perfect system of borrowing and returning the children, chewing them up and spitting them out, letting them recover a bit, and then having access to them the following weekend. You know, those are not being reported as missing, and some of the documents that we've been highlighting about this show that common purpose operatives like Cressida Dick, now at the top of the Met Police, were present at meetings where this very strategy was discussed, although they're careful to keep their names out of the minutes, I think. But they were there when the strategy was discussed. How do we define missing persons to avoid frightening the horses? And the definition the public it is hoped that the public will go by is the one that would form in your mind if you hadn't thought about it, which is children snatched and never seen again. Well, that's a small minority of the problem.